Welcome to The Thriving Marriage, the podcast for those who want to get their spouse back in love with them and truly thrive.
You'll learn why 95% of people don't save their marriage and the secret method no one else is talking about that will change everything for you. Are you ready? Let's turn tragedy to triumph.
Here are your hosts, international marriage experts, Mark Johnston and Heather Choate.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I am Heather Choate, and I just want to honor you for joining us here today at The Thriving Marriage. This is our very first podcast. My partner and our incredible head coach here, Mark Johnston, is on vacation with his family. So boo on him. He's missing our very first podcast here. But family time, as you're going to know, getting to know us is sacred and it's important to us. So by all means, he is welcome to do that. And he will be joining us next week while I am out on a youth trek. So today here on The Thriving Marriage, we're going to hit the ground running right away. We are all about getting our marriages to the best possible state. And even if things aren't so good right now, even if they aren't what you intended them to be, we want to give you some powerful, proven solutions to that. So today, specifically, I'm going to share with you the number one mistake that most people make when their spouse pulls away and what you must do instead. But before we get to that, I'm going to go to our client win of the day. Every single podcast, we want to share with you a client win of the day from our members group here in The Thriving Marriage to show you what is possible and to show you what the journey looks like. So this one is from Chris. Huge wins from Chris. His wife kissed him for the first time in almost a year, and now they're open to discussing things in the future. So here's Chris's wins in his own words. He says, "My wife kissed me yesterday for the first time in almost 1 year to the day. Happy Father's Day." So as you can tell, he posted this on Father's Day. He goes on, and she told me today that she is open to discussing things regarding our future. Major wins. Okay. Are you hearing things okay? I want to make sure everyone's hearing me okay. All right. Looks like it is working for most of you. Good. Just want to make sure the audio is working as I stream this live to our incredible Thriving Marriage Facebook group. So incredible wins there from Chris and a huge, what we say, high thrive from us to you. So really good job, Chris. Now, just a little bit of background about who we are. Like I said, my name's Heather. I'm 34 years old. I've been married almost 13 years. My husband and I, we have 7, soon to be 8 children. And this marks a really big week for our family. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to launch the Thriving Marriage podcast in conjunction with such a monumental week for our family. This week marks the 5th year anniversary of me being diagnosed with breast cancer while I was pregnant. At the age of 29, I had a lump that I noticed, and I went into my midwife, and she immediately got an ultrasound, which led to a biopsy, which led to the official diagnosis that it was an aggressive form of breast cancer. And I was told by doctors at that time, Heather, if you don't abort your baby, you're risking your life. Things aren't going to end well. And I was given a 6% chance of making it. A 6% chance of making it to this day. So this is a big day for me. Not only did we set out to save both myself and my baby, because I knew in my heart that's what I needed to do. We went on an incredible journey that pushed us to our limits and made our marriage even stronger because of those challenges. So today I'm really grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be here and thriving, and I've overcome so many obstacles, and most of them were in my own mind. Most of them were inside myself, which then drove me to want to be able to help others to make that kind of transformation inside themselves. I saw so many people suffering. I saw so many marriages falling apart. I saw other couples that were facing challenges and adversity and being defeated by them, letting them overtake them. And I wanted to be able to alleviate some of that. I felt that if I've been given a second chance at life, I really want to make the most of it. I really want to be able to share the things I've learned that have truly transformed who I am. And helped me shift from a person that was, anxious and, trying to make everything look perfect on the outside, but not very happy inside. And a marriage that maybe looked really good on the outside, but on the inside was suffering as well. So that now I'm at a place where I truly am a person that's at peace. And I have made so many incredible shifts in myself that I wanted to be able to pass that on. So that's what really created the birth here of High Thrive Coaching and the Thriving Marriage. So that's who I am. Next week, Mark Johnston will share a little bit more about who he is and how we kind of came together to create this, and our intention, which is crucial. As you work with us here, you'll understand more and more the power of our mindset, the power of our intention. Our intention is to save millions of marriages and to create a positive movement in the world, even a radical shift in the way that we view marriage, that we view our relationships. The information that's out there, there's some good stuff out there, but a lot of it is just fundamentally flawed, outdated, and ineffective. And so our approach is radically different than probably anything you've ever heard before. We are radically different than traditional therapy or any kind of self-help book or anything else like that. And our method is proven to work. We've been able to help thousands of couples now around the world to save their marriages and to truly thrive, which is just the best feeling in the world, to see a couple that is so broken and so in pain get to the place now where they are better and stronger, healthier and happier than ever before. So that is our intention, is to bring this message into the world. So I appreciate you here listening to the Thriving Marriage, being able to help share that message and to benefit from it yourself. In every episode, I really encourage you to take time to listen to your inner voice, to that inner, deeper part of yourself, and listen to what it's calling you to do. Because there are so many voices out there, and there is so much conflicting and contradictory information that can make it very overwhelming and very challenging to navigate through the difficulties that we face. But I truly believe, and I know, that there is a deeper part of each of us that knows truth when it hears it. And it knows what we are meant to do in this life. And no one else can tell us what that is. We are the only ones. So as you listen to each episode, I encourage you to listen to that inner being, to listen to that inner truth, and pay attention to what it says to you. It will feel right. It will feel good. And I encourage you to take action in the direction of that. So, is it possible to save my marriage? That is one of the biggest questions that Mark and I get here at High Thrive Coaching, being international marriage experts. We have numerous people reaching out to us daily, asking us, this is what's going on. This is what's happened. This is what my spouse says. This is what they're doing. This is what they say they're going to do. Given this, and this, is it even possible to save my marriage? Okay, we hear things about affairs. My partner says they're in love with someone else. They say they never loved me. They say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. They say, I just need to move on, or I need to find myself, right? It's too little too late. I'm just done. I want a divorce. I want out. You need to let me go, or I need to let you go. Any of the variations of that. And when your spouse is saying these things, I get it. It's really easy to wonder, is it even possible to save my marriage? And I want to give some clarity on that. So remember, I told you to tune into that inner voice. What is it telling you is possible? And what is it telling you is the right choice for you? Because I'm going to be completely honest, right? I promise. That's one of my promises. We will always be honest and act with integrity. So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I had a million different opinions coming at me from so many directions. I had the doctors telling me one thing: you need to abort your baby. The hormones that are feeding the cancer that feeding your baby are feeding the cancer, and it's growing rapidly and it's spreading. And it's not a good situation. We need to take care of this immediately, right? And then I had friends and family that were sending me all kinds of different remedies. I looked into some of them like, oh my goodness, wow, where did these people even get this stuff, right? Every kind of different kind of hokey thing to actual proven, research, all of these different things that were coming at me. My email was inundated. My Facebook Messenger was inundated. The phone was ringing off the hook. And eventually I just had to disconnect from all of it. I had to tune everything out. And maybe you feel that way too. Maybe your pastor is saying one thing, and maybe your therapist is saying another thing, and your friends, most of them are divorced, they're saying something else, and your mother's saying this, and your sister's saying that, right? And your best friend this and that, right? And it can feel completely overwhelming, leaving you wondering what really is the best choice. Is it even possible to save my marriage? Oftentimes people will say, if your spouse is checked out, if they want a divorce, there's nothing you can do. So just, try to let them go. That's the most common advice that we hear. So is it possible to save my marriage? And I'm going to tell you, 95% of the time, people can and should save their marriage. So what do I mean by that? Okay, well, there are two sure signs that a marriage is most likely over. First of all, if there's any kind of abuse, of physical, sexual abuse. Emotional abuse gets to be a bit of a gray area. Let me show you what I mean just here a little bit. All right. The emotional abuse means you've hurt my feelings. We're all emotionally abusing each other. So be careful of that one, right? There is true emotional abuse. However, we have to be mindful of if we're stepping too far into that. Okay. So if there's any kind of physical or emotional abuse going on, sexual abuse going on, that's a sure sign that a marriage needs to end. Second sign is that there is no communication whatsoever. If you have absolutely zero communication, I'm meaning no calls, no texts, no in-person visits, like maybe there's a restraining order put against you, or your spouse is on the other side of the world and you literally don't communicate about anything ever. If you have absolutely no communication, then there's nothing that we can do to help you save your marriage. However, if there isn't abuse going on and there is communication, then there is absolutely opportunity for you to save your marriage. So that brings us to the next point. Okay, well, how do I save my marriage? They say they want a divorce. They say they're in love with someone else. How do I get them back, even if they are checked out? And here on The Thriving Marriage, we're going to get deep into this. Right now, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what is our proven path method. This is a method that we've developed after working with thousands of couples all around the world. After studying so many couples all around the world, we know what makes couples tick, right? We know what brings them together. We know that what pulls them apart. There are certain traits, certain commonalities that almost universally spell success. And there are certain traits and commonalities that almost universally spell disaster. But the good news is that those traits and commonalities are things that you can learn. They're skills that maybe you haven't had up until this point, right? Let's face it, we aren't taught at school how to have a successful relationship. We aren't taught how to communicate or how to understand our spouse. We aren't taught how to establish healthy boundaries, right? Those aren't things that our parents probably modeled for us. Most of us, that's not the case at all, right? It's definitely not something that we can learn from our media, right? Our television, our sitcoms, they're conveying the exact opposite story, right? And it's definitely not something that we learned in school. So the reality is most of us just don't know. And we can give ourselves some grace about that. We can say, you know what, up until this point, I don't know. I haven't learned this before. And these are new things I've never done. And I'm willing to learn now, which is why I honor you for being here. So we're going to go through our proven path method that we've developed, showing exactly how anyone can learn those same skills and develop those positive commonalities that lead to a successful relationship. And it's an acronym. We love acronyms. They're easy to remember. So it's the PATH method. And P stands for perspective. So contrary to popular belief, okay, making positive changes alone to save your marriage is not enough. Here's what most people do. Their spouse starts pulling away and you get scared. You get into panic mode. You get into fear and into desperation. and you are willing to do almost anything to get them back, right? And so if your spouse says, I wish you wouldn't drink so much, I wish you wouldn't watch so much TV, I wish you wouldn't do this or do that or do this or do that, right? And so what do? We start making all those changes. Okay, I'm not going to drink so much. I'm not going to watch so much TV. I'll spend more time with you and the kids, right? And we start making all these positive changes. And we get into a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of energy. And what happens? Does our spouse see those as good things? Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, in most cases, what happens is that our spouse looks at them as a manipulation tactic, or they are skeptical that if they come back to you and to the relationship, that it's going to last. They'll say things like, well, if I end the divorce process, then you're probably just going to go back to the way that you were before, right? And so that's why making positive changes alone is not enough. And this is where most counselors, pastors, etc., they totally miss this. And honestly, we did too for years. It wasn't until after working with so many couples that were going through the divorce process and helping them that we uncovered this ourselves. So you must uncover and understand why they want out in the first place. All right? And this is a whole other thing that we're going to go really deep into, but it really comes down to getting deeper than the surface level things that they're saying, because what they're saying is usually not even it at all. It's just a symptom. It's not the root issue. And so we want to uncover what the root issue really is. Okay. And they may not even know it consciously, but we show you exactly how to uncover that. We'll go deeper into that. And in this phase, it's all about gaining perspective. Why do they want out? What is the story that they're telling themselves? And in this phase, we guide you on how to open up communication, which is so crucial. At this point in a relationship, if it's really tense, if there's talk of separation, divorce, or things are already in those processes, then communication is very rarely going well. Right? It's tense, it's cold, it's argumentative, they're completely shut off to talking about the relationship, and it's very difficult to have any kind of communication. So we're going to show you how to open up that communication. So yes, you will finally have open, real communication with your husband or your wife, even if you barely talk right now, even if they are closed off, are resistant to talking about the marriage, even if it's uncomfortable and tense, they are cold, and even if you can only talk about like surface level stuff, the kids, the business, the house, etc. So opening up communication is the first milestone. Then that brings us to A, which is adjustment. And here we're going to help you focus your energy and your interactions with your spouse to make positive changes. Remember those skills I talked about, those commonalities that lead to success? We're going to help you establish healthy boundaries, restore trust. And here, your spouse can start to associate you with safety and positive experiences. And this is how we help to open up their heart. So my friends, is it true? If we keep doing the same things, we will keep getting the same results. So it's time to learn some new things because we want some new results, right? It's time to learn skills, and maybe they've been lacking. And be sure that we solve problems at their roots, those root issues, not just the symptoms, so that the positive changes that you make will last long term. We're not talking about a quick fix. We're talking about a solid, healthy, thriving marriage. So here, your spouse will see those positive changes, those positive interactions as you're solving these problems at their roots. And what happens is that their level of hope in having a future with you starts to rise. It's really exciting. And that brings us to the next phase of the PATH method, which is T, tell a new story. Remember at the beginning with P, I talked about how their story is the reason why they're leaving, how we need to uncover what that story is, and not just the symptoms of it, but the actual root reasons. So here we want to start to tell a new story. So we guide you step by step, and we coach you on, now that your husband and your wife changes the story that they've created about you and the relationship, they can see the possibility of being happy with you again. So here's the bottom line, is that you must change their story, or they're not going to believe that the positive changes that you've made, that they're real, or that they will last if they come back to you. Let me give an example here. So I've been working with my very dear friends. I'm going to change their names to Caleb and Dana. Dana had the story that Caleb would never meet her needs, that over the years, they've been married 24 years, that she communicated to him, you just don't meet my needs. I've asked you to be more affectionate and you just don't listen. And she created a story that Caleb is never going to listen. He's never going to meet my needs. Therefore, he must not care. And if he doesn't care and if he won't meet my needs, then it's probably better and healthier for us to divorce. And so here they were after 24 years of marriage, 5 beautiful, incredible children, and they're looking at divorce. So what did Caleb do? He did what most of us do, right? He started reading books. He started making some positive changes. He went to counseling for 8 months. And what happened? He got absolutely no results. In fact, things only got worse. And so Caleb confided in my husband, Ben, and about what's going on. And Ben told him, look, you really need to follow this path method, and you need to get this coaching. You need to get this individual help here, because she has such a strong story about you that all these positive changes that you're making, they're only backfiring. And not only that, but I can tell you're absolutely exhausted. Caleb mentioned he was only getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep per night because he was just exhausted, and he was so anxious and full of fear and afraid of losing his wife and afraid of what divorce would mean for his family and having them raised in separate homes. And so Ben encouraged him, do this path method, follow through with it, do everything that they tell you to do. All right. And then she will start to see a new story about you. She'll start to see that these changes that you're making are real. And so that's what Caleb did. And within 2 months, they went to mediation after 2 months of him working on this. And she agreed to give him some time to work on the relationship. And now, instead of working on the divorce, they're now working on their marriage, which is a huge win. And I'm really, really proud of Caleb, but he's doing this. And she is starting to see the changes. She says, I see that he's making these for himself, not just for me, and that they're going to last no matter what happens in the relationship, which is gorgeous. And we will go through that in the future. We'll dissect that a little bit more. It's super juicy. But the bottom line is that here, Dana is starting to tell a new story about Caleb. She's saying, wow, he really is understanding me. He is showing me much more compassion than he ever has before. He's really making an effort to meet my needs. And not only is he making that effort, he is doing that, and he is meeting my needs. And so she's starting to tell the story, wow, Caleb might actually be able to meet my needs going forward. And eventually the story will be, Caleb meets my needs. I'm happy with him, because that's exactly what it's designed to do. So that's what it looks like when we tell a new story and we help our spouse to see the new story. All right. And that shifts them from the state where they don't believe in the positive changes that we're making, that they're real or that they will last, to that they know that they're real and that they will last. Okay. And so we'll guide you on how to change their story. And this allows you to have the opportunity to fully win their heart again. Now, that brings us in our path method to H, which is the last phase of this segment of restoring a relationship. So H is hold out hope. And in this phase, we help you slow down or stop the process of divorce and have your spouse agree to give you time. Why is this so important? This is mega huge, okay? So we've proven time and time again that if we can slow down the process of divorce, of separation, or of distance in a relationship, and we can gain 6 months of time, just like Caleb did, where his wife's agreeing to work on the relationship now, the opportunity for your husband or for your wife to fall back in love with you for good greatly increases. It's incredible. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. If you're looking for a quick fix, I'm sorry, there isn't one, and this isn't for you. But if you're willing to do what it takes to get your spouse back, because something in your heart says, I love this person. I meant my vows when I made them. I am willing to do what it takes to make it work. And you know what? Whether it works or not, I want to do this because I want to live with the peace that I gave it everything that I could. So I can look my children in the eye and said, you know what? I gave that marriage with your mom, with your dad, everything that I could. And I became a better person because of it. That is worth it. That is worth it. Every bit of effort or energy that you could ever give into it. So we show you how to get your spouse to agree to give you time, to agree to slow down or even stop the process of divorce. If you're separated, how to agree to get them to come back home and get them willing to work on the relationship. If there's an affair going on, how to end the affair, create some healthy boundaries, and be able to work on the relationship again together. One of our favorite clients, I don't know if anyone's supposed to have favorites, but I do. One of my favorite clients, Leah, she's given us permission to share her name and her story. Her husband was in love with someone else a year and a half ago when we first met her. They were expecting their very first child. And then was just a month away from delivering when he told her that he was in love with someone else, that they were going to get divorced, and that he was going to go live with this other woman. And Leah came to us and she said, I love him and I want this to work. Show me what to do. And so we took her through this exact process that I just shared with you, and that we're going to go even deeper on here in the podcast. And her husband left the other woman. They established some healthy boundaries and they served their purpose. And now, a year and a half later, their son is, wild walking toddler, and they're expecting another child. And she said in her own words that they are better and healthier and stronger than they were even before the affair happened, because they didn't just solve the symptoms, which was the affair and the things that were going on, but they solved those deeper root issues. They were able to heal at a deeper internal level so that they can truly be healthy and happy now. So now I'm going to get to the number one mistake that most people make when their spouse pulls away, and what you must do instead. So the number one mistake most people make when their spouse pulls away is that they try to hold on too tight. Remember that fear mode I talked about? When your spouse is pulling away, instinctively we get into our fear mode. We panic. We become very desperate. And anything that we do, even if it's a positive step, okay, even if it's a positive change, but if we're doing it out of fear, what happens is that it pushes our spouse further away. And so I like to call this the push versus pull method. Okay, most people, they'll just get into that panic mode and into that fear and into that tension. And can you imagine if you're in the room with someone and they are full of fear, they're anxious, you can see the rigidity in their body, their muscles are tight, their brow is furrowed, they look desperate, they're acting out of desperation. What is our instinct to do? It's to get away as fast as the heck as we possibly can, right? We want to create space between us and that person because they don't feel safe. And so what 95% of people do, the number one mistake most people will do, is that they act out of that fear and out of that desperation. And what happens is they push their spouse further and further and further away until it's too late. I don't want that for you. I want to show you how to pull your spouse toward you. and how you can shift out of that state of fear and anxiety, of desperation, pleading, I'm doing anything, or I'm so angry at you, right? Any of those things, into a state of calmness, into a state of serenity, into a state of inner peace and empowerment, where you know at the core of your being, I'm okay. And there is something that has to happen, a shift that has to happen inside of you when you're at this point in your relationship, that you need to take a step back from that fear. When we're in that fear, we're in our limbic system, which is our fight, flight, or freeze response. And what's interesting, you can look this up in psychology, is that a lot of the blood flow to the reasoning part of our brain is cut off. So we're in this very animalistic, instinctive state. That's not our best selves, right? We can't reason well. We can't function well. We don't sleep well. We don't process things well. We don't respond well. And it pushes our spouse further away. Not only that, but we're in a state of constant stress and fear and panic. And that's not what we want to be. I remember feeling that kind of level of fear, panic, just absolute desperation in my life at times when I had to face things that truly terrified me. The thought of losing my life, the thought of losing my baby, the thought of even losing my own marriage at one point, and the darkness that surrounds you, and how it just seems to accompany you in everything that you do, everywhere that you go. And so learning how to move through those emotions, allow them to have a space, but then to let them go so that they don't hinder us anymore. They come to serve us, but then we can allow them to go and get to that state of inner calm and that state of inner peace. There is something that has to happen at this point of letting go. And I know that this podcast and this whole episode is all about saving your marriage, getting your spouse back in love with you. But there's something that has to happen internally that says, I release the need to control this outcome. Because is it 100% in my control? No, it's not. So shift your focus from 90% of the time focusing on what you can't control, which is what most of us do, and only 10% on what we can control. Shift that so that 90% of our focus is on what we can control. And then with the other 10%, be aware of it. Be aware of it, but don't try to control it. And that's where you find that inner peace and that serenity. And it's kind of like releasing your hands, kind of like letting it go. Let go and let God is the saying, right? I often compare this to my sweet little daughter who's 5. And she absolutely loves animals, roly-polies, bunnies, all, you name it. Every time she comes in and she's like, I've got a roly-poly, Mom. I'm like, oh, that poor thing. You should probably let it go so it can live. No, she holds it and she crushes it. And then she gets really sad about it. But that's what we do when we're holding on so tightly to something that we want. And we become that kind of desperation that we feel. We crush the life out of the very thing that we want. And so there is beauty and serenity, strength and power in learning how to let it go. And to say, I release the need to control this. Let it be what it is. I'm here to become the best version of myself. I'm here because I want to uncover the truth of who I am. I'm here because I know that I have a purpose in this life and that I need to live that purpose. And I focus on my purpose. And as I let these things go, I allow them to come back to me. So I encourage you to think about that. And let that resonate with you, that there is beauty in surrender. There's beauty in letting go of outcomes. When we make that shift and we become at a state of peace, that we know that we are going to be okay, that our family is going to be okay, that our spouse is going to be okay, regardless of the outcome, then we allow for that very outcome to happen. When we're in that kind of a state of inner peace, of calmness, of centeredness and inner peace, how do you think our spouse will respond? Will they sense that shift in us? Absolutely, they will. because we went from a person that was very panicked, very fearful, very angry, very bitter, very upset, very desperate, very pleading, any of those things, to a person that I'm actually okay. I care about you for you. I want to understand you. I want to appreciate you. I want you to be happy, but I'm okay where I am. And they will sense that shift. And what happens? They're no longer pushing away from us. They're being drawn to us, pulled to us, because that kind of person in that kind of a state is very attractive. And so that is the number one thing that you can do, where most people completely miss this. Don't worry so much about getting into action mode that you forget to make the internal shifts that are going to make those very actions effective. Make sure you do the internal shifts first, so that then any outer actions, skills, anything that you adopt, any positive changes that you make will come from the right place and they will be effective. All right, so now as we are rounding up here on our first Thriving Marriage podcast, I'm going to talk about our marriage mythbuster. This is a little bit of a segment of the show that we wanted to bring in because we have seen so many myths and mistakes out there that we want to bring some clarity to the entire thing here. So, marriage mythbuster number 1. Today we're going to be talking about how there is a huge myth out there that it takes 2 to tango. It takes 2 to tango, sure, if you're dancing, but it does not take 2 to tango in your marriage. In other words, they're saying that you can't save your marriage on your own. And I'm going to make a bold statement. It is absolutely possible for one person to save their marriage by starting first, and we can prove it. We have the results. We have the thousands of couples just like you that we've been able to help do exactly that. Think about it. Think about it even from a logical perspective here just for a moment. If your spouse says they want out, if they're checked out, if they want a divorce, how likely is it that they're going to turn around and want to work on the marriage? Very unlikely, right? And if you ask them to, which is often another big mistake that people make from that fear mode, it's only going to push them further away. And since we want to pull them toward us, the place that we need to put our focus on is on ourselves, is on healing those inner things, and on working on maybe some of those limiting beliefs or false stories that we've been living, and the false patterns, the ineffective skills that maybe we have that have led up to this point, and be able to work on those things. And when one person makes those kind of positive changes, it greatly influences the other. It is a dance. Marriage is absolutely a dance. And sometimes you might be out there alone on the dance floor, but that's because your partner has been pushed to the other side of the room. And with the pull method, that dance is going to start to feel a lot safer to them. It's going to feel a lot more inviting. It's going to feel more understanding, and it's going to be more attractive, which will pull them to you. So using our path method, again, is how we show you that it is absolutely possible to save your marriage, even if you're the only one willing to work on it at first. So I want to ask you now here, what is stopping you from completely getting your spouse back, from completely falling deeply in love again, from completely restoring your marriage? Have you ever seen a couple that was just madly in love, even after years of marriage? My grandparents were one of those couples, one of those cute old couples that would he would rub her neck and they would hold hands and probably totally gross us grandkids out, right? But they were just one of those cute, adorable couples. And the love that they showed each other in their eyes and in their actions and in their words spoke of their years of dedication and spoke of their years of selflessness and of their years of truly making each other happy. Have you ever wanted that for yourself? I know I have. I remember being like, one point in my relationship, we were on the verge of total collapse. And I'll go deeper into that another day, but looking at what I felt was a failed marriage, and that I just didn't have what it takes, and that despite all my efforts and reading books and podcasts and talking to pastor and talking to our bishop and talking to a counselor, it wasn't leading to anything. And so it just must be not for us. I remember looking at my grandparents the year before my grandfather died and being like, what did you do different? I asked my grandfather, I was like, you show my grandmother so much love. And I know that she hasn't always been the most kind to you. She's actually kind of a really negative person. And he said, I always just showed her compassion. Just show them compassion. And that's what heals hearts. So I know what that feels like to look at a couple and be like, I want that. What did they have that I don't? And to have that yearning in your heart for it. You know, I've had that feeling, your heart sinks, right? You know, you're like, my marriage, oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm not always the most articulate, but that's okay. My marriage is barely hanging on as it is, you know? I'm spending tons of energy and I'm doing all these things that are supposed to work, but I feel like it's just slipping further away from me. And being able to shift that now to truly having that kind of a thriving marriage, a kind of healthy marriage that my heart has always craved. So I want you to sink into that and give yourself some space now. Listen to your heart. Imagine how your life would feel if you had the marriage of your dreams. Imagine if you had everything that you needed, all of those skills that may have been lacking, any of those things that you felt like were, you know, maybe others had it and you just didn't or something, that you had all of that and that your spouse wanted to be with you again. You were able to shift out of that fear, that tension, that insecurity, the anger, the betrayal, the distrust, any of those things, to that state of calmness and serenity and peace. Just imagine what that would feel like. Imagine how different life would be. And imagine seeing them being attracted to you again, of feeling safe with you again, of wanting to work on things with you again. Imagine the kind of conversations that you could have. How would you sleep at night? And how would you look into your children's faces, knowing that you were the example to them that you wanted to be? So if any of this resonates with you, we do offer a free breakthrough call where we get to work with you one-on-one to see the very best solutions for your marriage. So I invite you to join us over at highthrivecoaching.com/apply, and you can book your free breakthrough call with us right away. We have proven solutions that can show you step-by-step how to get there. And above all, so that you can live with the peace that you are doing everything that you can for your marriage and that you're becoming who you're meant to be. Now, I hope you've enjoyed our first podcast here, and I have some exciting news. We have a Thriving Marriage newsletter. All right, and you can join this newsletter, and you can be entered to win a free one-on-one coaching with Mark Johnston, our international marriage expert. So I'm going to give you the link here, and then we'll post it as well. But the link for that is relationship-reboot-course.com/join podcast. We'll probably get a prettier URL in the future, but that's the one we have. relationship-reboot-course.com/join podcast. And if you want the free breakthrough call with us to talk about coaching, that's highthrivecoaching.com/apply. Wonderful. So next week, Mark Johnston is going to be here in all of his glory and all of his awesomeness. You are going to truly love him, and he is going to share with you why 95% of people don't save their marriage, and the secret method that no one else is talking about that we discovered almost by mistake. It's true. It was almost by mistake that we discovered it, but it has truly changed everything for us and for our clients and the thousands of couples just like you around the world. So thank you for watching, and we will talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Thriving Marriage, your A to Z blueprint for not just surviving marriage, but thriving. Until next time, my friends, thrive on.